Hello and welcome to a new video. Before we get into this video, I do want to apologise. You might be able to hear my fan in the background. Usually I turn it off when I'm doing my recordings because I don't want it interfering with the sound, but it is unfortunately extremely hot here at the moment and I cannot bear turning them off. It's too much. So if you can hear that, I'm very sorry. But yes, let's get into this video. So for this video, I was sent some acrylic paints by the company Shuttle Art. They sent me this set of 50 acrylic paints, and it looks like it comes with a set of 12 paintbrushes, which I think is really cool, especially since I have been needing some new paintbrushes. So we'll be testing those out as well. These paints look really nice. They have a nice variety of colours, and they also come with this plastic cap to keep the paint safe and sealed so there is no leaking. I did go about changing the order of all the paints so that they were in more of a like rainbow sort of order, you know, but I didn't realise my camera was out of focus this whole time, so it's blurry, but I think it looks better. Obviously it doesn't have to look perfect, but it's good enough for what I wanted. I wanted to do some swatches of these. Normally I don't do that when it comes to acrylic paints because I feel like it's not always necessary because I'm going to be blending them for the most part anyway, but I felt like doing it for these ones because someone mentioned it on one of my previous videos and you guys know how much I love doing swatches. The colour range for these is really nice. Just by themselves you've got some really pretty colours. I like the range of it. You've got some good purples in there as well, which you guys know I love my purples. Of course you can mix them and get whatever colours you want as well, but it is really nice to see which ones are just like ready to go in the set. And then of course you've got some like metallics at the bottom here and then some fluorescents as well. Yeah, a really nice looking set. I wanted to do some planning in my sketchbook for what I wanted to do for a painting, and I have been in a really big Elden Ring mood recently. I've been listening to the soundtrack for the DLC Shadow of the Erdtree, and one of my favourites was the soundtrack for Mydra, the Lord of the Frenzied Flame, and I was thinking back to when I played the DLC, and he was one of my favourite bosses I think to fight. I had issues with the DLC. I'm going to play it again to see if it's still the same case with a different build, but it wasn't my favourite, but I did really like all of the music, all of the scenery, the bosses looked really cool, and I liked the story. So yeah, I really wanted to do something for Mydra because he has such a cool design. Because he's the Lord of Frenzied Flame, he has like this frenzy fire looking decal that a lot of people who are afflicted with frenzy can get. His is more extreme, of course, like theirs usually just comes out of their eyes, but his is like his whole head, and I just really liked that and I wanted to do something for that. So I started by just doing a casual sketch of him. That is what this part of the video is basically just me doing some sketches in my book. This one was not at all going to be a painting. This was just me getting a feel for like how to draw him and if I liked how he was looking in like my style. And I think this one is actually from a screenshot, so I will put the screenshot on the screen for you. But yeah, it was really fun to just try and figure out how I wanted to portray the like fire head thing, and I kind of went for more like spirally swirly shapes because I really wanted to go extreme with it. And yeah, it was just really fun to draw, honestly. After doing that, I then wanted to actually try and come up with a composition for a painting. So this one I have here is again inspired by another screenshot. It might even be copied, I'm not sure, but of him like looking back over his shoulder, although it's hard to tell because like he doesn't have a head, so where is he looking? But I really liked the composition of this, and I mean, lately I have really enjoyed doing just anyone looking over the shoulder. I just really like the pose of it, so it kind of does seem fitting that I've got him doing the sultry over the shoulder look as well. It just kind of makes me laugh. And I liked it, but I also wasn't entirely meshing with it, so I wanted to do another one. So we've got this one as well that is more from my head. I wanted it to be like an upwards angle, which I tried to get, but I really struggle with perspectives, so I don't know how... It's not as extreme as I feel like it should have been, how I imagined it in my head. So I don't know if it comes across as like you or the perspective is looking up at him from below, but it doesn't really matter, because even if it doesn't work, I still like how this one turned out and I enjoyed doing it. He is kind of like a really like starved man, you know, like you can see his bones through his skin. He is very thin, which I really like, in contrast with like his head, because it has like this like magnificence of like his head and the fire look of it, with just like a regular decaying man. I also like it because this isn't the case, but it kind of gives like a charred, burned look, which works really well with the head thing, because like it isn't, but it looks like it's been burned, and I just really like how that looks together. So I got those drawings done, and I really liked the third one that I'd done on that page. But before I went ahead painting it, I wanted to do a little paint test in my book to figure out some colours for him, and you know, if I felt like this would be the right thing that I wanted to do. So as you saw, I did just a very simple sketch of him, nothing fancy going on, that I just wanted to colour in and figure out the colours for, because I did want it to stick to the colour themes that he has, but I also wanted to see if I could like add some more colours in and try and get the swirly shapes that I'd gotten in the sketches, and just figure out how I was going to do that. So I started by blending it from white to yellow to this fluorescent orange, and yeah, these paints are really thin. Some of them are thicker than others. Off the top of my head, I can't think of which ones though, because some of the darker ones as well are very thin. And I do think this is like to do with the quality of the paints, because they also dry really quickly, and they dry darker than they went on, which someone in a previous video told me that is to do with if they are cheap paints or not. And yeah, so I don't know if that is the case with these, but that was my experience with them, is that they're a little finicky to work with. A lot of the things that I put down needed multiple layers, or just to be put down really thickly. And I didn't mind that the paint had texture, because I was putting it down quite thick. The only reason that would bother me is because I have done it in my sketchbook. It means that the graphite from the opposite page has a higher chance of sticking to the thicker parts, because those parts can be a bit tacky and they can attract the graphite. Otherwise, it was fine. I was doing lots of building up and layering, so it seemed to be working for the most part. Of course, it was then harder putting some colours on over darker colours. Like, it really didn't feel like it was doing that much, and it would need a lot of layers, which sometimes I was just like, oh, I'm not going to bother, then I'll just leave it how it is, because the thought of how many layers it might take was kind of off-putting. So as you can see, I kind of spread it out into these blues and purples, and I realised that I wanted the centre to be more yellow, so I went in with some more yellow. And the eye, what I want to call the eye of the flame, is actually just blue, and I wanted it to have red near the edges to kind of make it seem like, I don't know what you'd say, but it like give it some heat or something. And then I went in and I coloured him in just with some like reds and purples and blues, and I really like it because I think he stands out enough from the background, because before I had painted him it was looking kind of not right, of course, because it wasn't finished. But yeah, I really like how this turned out, although it didn't turn out exactly how I thought it would. Like I said, I struggled with some of the layering over the darker colours, so I do feel like it's kind of messy, and it was hard to get it to look neat because of how much I was struggling to put the paint down, so I felt like my brush strokes weren't coming out as I exactly wanted them to. So yeah, I did want to have it spreading out a bit, but then because these are acrylics, and this would happen with any like acrylic paint from a tube, at least from my experience, when I closed the book, they stuck together a little bit, so it did like peel, so I gave up on doing that. But yeah, I do really like this. You can see some of the pencil through it because, like I said, they are a bit thin, but I'm really glad I did this because I realized that this is not what I want to do on a separate canvas. I do really like how the colours turned out, though it's not entirely, like I said, what I had in my head, but it did really help me just nail exactly what I wanted to do. What I ended up doing instead, and you may be wondering why there are pink lines on this canvas, it's because this is the canvas that I'd used in a previous video where I was testing out acrylic markers. I instead wanted to do something a little simpler, but I did still want to keep the theme of the frenzied flame thing from Elden Ring. In the game, there are these plants called the Eye of Yellow. It's all to do with the Yellow King, or at least it's inspired by the Yellow King, I believe. And so like yellow is the colour of madness, and these plants are related to that because I think they have been like afflicted by it, but they are made to look like eyes. I'll put the picture up on the screen. They look pretty nasty, but I wanted to do something inspired by it and not exactly that gross. So my one's made up of like actual eyeball looking fruits, I guess. And the idea behind these plants is that they act as a sort of what would you call it, like a what's the thing that puts you to sleep, like it knocks you out, an anesthesia or something, because the whole idea is that the people who are afflicted by the frenzied flame are people who are like suffering from pain, either like mentally, emotionally. I think they can be physically as well, but the whole idea of it is like people who want to stop feeling that pain. So that's what this plant is related to them by, because it acts as a way of like turning off the pain. And I love the whole thing behind the frenzied flame. I find it so cool, and the imagery is so cool. So yeah, I wanted to do a plant inspired by that plant, and I really liked it, especially because like yellow is my favorite color, so it was really fun to just do something to do with that. I was having a little issue because I used this pink to seal in the initial sketch, as you saw, and it made all of the paints that I put on after it quite dark because they were thin enough that the colour of the pink was affecting them, which was kind of the point in putting it down, but it was affecting them way more than I expected it to, and that I've had with other paints in the past. So it was kind of tricky because I wanted the background to be yellow, and as you can see when I put the background on, it had a lot of patchiness that made it orange in places. I did ultimately like how this looked, which I think was really lucky. I think it kind of added to the vibes of it. And as you can see, I was also intending on going in with some extra layers anyway, because I wanted the background to have like subtle swirly vibes that would then spread out into more obvious colours, which you will see. I wanted it to be similar to how the flame looks in the game, how it has like these really nice wavy like heat lines almost. And so I wanted the background to look like that, and I added in some purples and some pinks, and I think the colours just looked really nice together. And I think it does give the whole like trippy vibe that I was kind of going for, because based on the description, these plants do kind of act like a drug. So I did really like this sort of psychedelic trippy vibe that this was giving. And I was planning on also having what I've done at the bottom be at the top of the picture as well, but my brother was saying how much he liked the top being yellow, and I realised that I actually liked it too. I think it creates like a better dynamic than if it had the purple and dark colours coming in from both sides. I then also decided to make the pupils on the eyes yellow, just to make them stand out more and have more contrast, but still keep it in the yellow theme, because initially I was planning on having them being either black or dark blue, and I feel like that might have been like too dark, and I much prefer how this looks. I basically after this needed to go back in and add an extra layer to everything, because all the colours were looking quite streaky and patchy, and then also because I did it, I guess, what people might consider backwards, where I worked from the foreground to the background, because typically that's how I like to work with colours, like with acrylics, to then neaten up the foreground with the background. But because of this, it kind of messed up everything in the foreground. So I don't know if that made sense. I just started rambling. I don't know if that made sense. But I basically just needed to neaten everything up and make it all more vibrant. So yeah, there was a lot of going over things in this piece, but I do really like how everything ended up looking, and I think all the colours looked really nice together. And then I really wanted to keep all the little pieces quite subtle, so I added some sparkles to the background, which I usually really like to do, but I kept them a bright yellow so that they were sort of noticeable but not crazy noticeable, because I really wanted the white bursts behind the fruits to be the brightest part, to stand out the most. So if I added more sparkles, I was worried that that would then either clash or just take too much attention away from them. So I really like how those little sparkles looked. And yeah, so I love how this turned out. This might be one of my favourite things I've done this year. I don't know, I just really like how the colours looked, and like I said, yellow is my favourite colour, so I'm like kind of obsessed with it. But yeah, so this was incredibly fun, a very themed video. I didn't entirely intend for it to be an Elden Ring themed video, but that is what it turned out to be. I do also really like this because it's not like so much in your face Elden Ring. This one is, but this one is like a bit more subtle, which I really like. The paints were nice. I really liked the colours they came with. My only issue is how thin they could be, and that I needed to work things quite a lot. But then, like, with how much paint you get in one tube, I think it seems quite decent. The paintbrushes I really liked. I didn't use all of them, like I didn't use this fan brush or whatever it's called, but the ones I did use I really liked, so I'm really happy with that, because it also means I have some new paintbrushes. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really liked doing this. It was very yellow themed. If you want to try these paints out for yourself, there will be links in the description, so be sure to check that out. I want to say a massive thank you to Shuttle Art for sending me these to try out, and also a massive thank you to everyone who has watched this video and made it this far. And as always, a very special thank you to my patrons. They are amazing, and I am always so grateful for their support. But I should hopefully have another video out for you guys soon, so I will see you then.